Hey there, welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my complete process for creating this intricate, interconnected, surreal, crazy, deeply personal painting. I've been somewhat obsessed with the creative process my entire life. I'm always exploring, searching, trying to learn more. I'm using these videos as a way to try to share anything I learn or have learned or am learning with others who are like-minded. So with this video, I'm going to look at this process from beginning to end. What is the concept? What is the meaning? The subject matter? Why am I making it? What's it for? How did I make it? The techniques that are involved, the materials that are involved, my entire creative thought process and approach. So I hope you enjoy this. I'll do my best to be as efficient as I can. We'll see how it goes. But let's just jump in and get started.
So the idea for this piece started with a call for art from a local gallery, the Heart and Soul Art Gallery, and I had recently been part of a group exhibition there. This surreal painting here with this bluebird was my entry for that show, and that show was a lot of fun, just a great experience all around. So when the new call for art came out for a show called Code of Color, it got my attention, and primarily because I've always considered color and the use of color one of my strengths, and I just love playing with color palettes, and it's one of my favorite aspects of making art. And I found this line specifically intriguing, the weaving narratives through a vibrant tapestry of colors. And that got me thinking about a style of abstract painting that I've been doing and exploring for years, using color with these interconnected geometric shapes to try to document stories and moments of my life. And one of those paintings was for an outdoor community art project, and it was a very small sign that is still hanging up outdoors in the city of Decatur. And when I made that, I felt like the abstract patterns would probably just blend into the surroundings and likely would go unnoticed by passersby. So I decided to paint some golden scarabs crawling over the surface, so over the abstract background, to hopefully catch people's eye and get their attention. I'm not sure it's successful or not, but I really loved how it turned out, and I'll get into the symbolism of that, the scarabs themselves and what they mean later on. But this concept was the spark that sort of became the subject I wanted to focus on for this new piece. My first step in making a painting is usually sketching. Not always, but most of the time. My sketchbook is truly a place to capture the most basic concepts. It's very loose. I hardly ever refine these drawings in this type of a sketchbook as a final piece of art. Here you can see some of the unfinished sketches I did for this painting. I knew I wanted to have the color evolve from a central point and move outwards in the painting, and I knew that I wanted to paint these interconnected abstract moments with some realistic objects, some eyes in specific spots and some scarabs crawling over this network of images. Later I'll get deeper into explaining the concept more itself, but here I was just trying to work out the general layout and where those elements would go. Here I'm working on a 24 by 24 gallery wrapped canvas. This one came primed, but I added a few more layers of gesso. I like to tint every other layer so that I can see the coverage as I apply it. I sand in between the layers after drying each one if I want a smooth surface to paint on. I skip that sanding if I'm going to be adding lots of texture to the piece, but here I wanted it to be pretty smooth. After drawing some guidelines in, mainly just to help me space out the eyes symmetrically, and also drawing some circles to mark where I wanted some color shifts to happen, I started drawing the central eye and then surrounding it with all these smaller interconnected images, mostly from my early childhood. The drawing process here is pretty intuitive. I just put on some music and I start to think about early memories, experiences, places, people, moments, just important, significant things and times that were things I could remember from my early life. And covering the full range here, from wonderful times to tragic times, everything in between. I don't really think about the individual drawings too much. In some cases, I have some symbolic designs that I've reused, that I've designed and reused in the past in other artworks, and I'll reference those. But for these, they're very intuitive. I just think about a moment or a person or a place, and I just draw it. And I'm just having fun, filling in this whole area, one little puzzle piece at a time, seeing how these things connect together. It's a very fun, nostalgic, sort of cathartic process for me. And lots of memories, flood my mind, and I just keep picking which moments I want to try and document here. And I don't intend for these symbols to really communicate anything specific to the viewer. This is more for me. So if I wanted them to connect really, really clearly to the viewer, I would probably make them more universal or generic. And there's some of those mixed in, but for the most part, this is really, specific to me and my life. I will give you one example, though, of the power of one of these single little iconic images. There's a swallow or a bird in the right side of this little drawing, and that kind of represents my grandfather. He used to grow these gourds, and he had these bird houses, and he would take the gourds and make bird houses out of them and put them up on these tall poles. And every year, I remember these purple martins would migrate through, and they would use the gourds and the birdhouses to build their nests in as they would migrate through. And so I added one here, and I do that sometimes in my paintings. I hide those little birds, and that single image brings back just a lot of memories of me playing and being around my grandfather. And it serves as a symbol also of like freedom and exploration and even more. And so the point is that, these are powerful little symbols that embody sometimes double or even triple meanings. And I feel like it's just, all together collectively, it's like this whole life of experiences kind of embedded in the work. And, as I'm drawing these individual pieces, I stop and observe them from time to time and adjust anything that I see that I feel like could be improved. But mostly, as I'm trying to just draw these things as simply as I can, I'm also looking to see how they fit together, trying to make, just harmonious geometric relationships. I'm also starting to think about the colors and what my plan is going to be. And we'll talk about that more as I start to paint. But I'm also thinking about time management, right? So worrying just about how long this is going to take me to fill it all in with all these tiny little shapes, and just how much of the canvas is still, empty. Painting now, and I'm going to use acrylic paint. That's typically what I use. I love acrylic paint. I can't imagine painting something like this with oils. I would certainly make a huge mess with it as slow as they dry. My overall goal with the color palette is to have the center be lighter and a bit muted or faded when compared to the rest of the painting. It's going to have sort of glow effect overall, and I'm starting with a limited palette here. So I'm using these warm tones and colors, which will transition and become more vibrant with more colorful, saturated hues as we move outward later. The whole piece is meant to be a symbolic sort of documentation of my life, and so the center colors here are meant to represent fading and nostalgic memories, fuzzy, warm, and in danger of slowly disappearing as I age. This outlining technique is something I use quite often in my work. I always anticipate and enjoy doing this part. I love just seeing the painting come to life. It kind of reminds me of stained glass or something. It really does pull it all together. Now, I've also started slowly adding more saturated colors, like some of these oranges, as I move outward. And it may be hard to see in the video, but I hope it can come through. It'll be more obvious as I keep going. I've also started to add some white washes over the line work and the central colors to just tone them down a little bit as I go occasionally. And this is really where I start to just intuitively play with color and techniques and try to just work the painting until I can achieve the overall effect that I'm going for. And I really have to rely upon my observation skills here and just my judgment to tweak the piece as I move forward. So I've skipped ahead here a good bit, and I'm going to continue to do that because this painting took me many, many hours, and even with time lapse and speeding it up, it would take hours and hours for this tutorial if I just included all the clips. Here I've stopped painting and now I'm drawing again, and all the imagery in this ring here is going to represent my sort of young adult into middle-aged life. And there's a lot of really fun things in here. If you guys see anything you recognize, or video game characters or animals or specific things that are interesting, I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. It'd be fun to hear and see what you all connect and recognize. So there's always a point in a painting where doubt starts to creep in for various reasons. Just you get to a point where you're not far enough along that you can see it, right? You can see where the piece is going to go. And I think that's where we are at this point. So I've done enough paintings that I know I just have to trust it, but I'm really feeling some anxiety here. Mainly because of how time consuming this is and just how much time it's taken me to fill in each of these tiny little shapes. But I know that if I don't give up and if I just stay focused, it probably is going to turn out, and I'm excited to actually see where it's going to go, but it's definitely something I have to work through. And here I was just focused on trying to find where to put different colors, just playing with a variety of colors and trying to organize them in some kind of a pleasing, harmonious way. And also knowing I can paint over them if I have to or need to. And I will do that as I move through this. And I also continue to, draw in new images as needed to fill in the areas that I haven't filled in yet. Now, if I'm being honest, there are stretches of time here where I'm just completely zoned out and I'm not thinking at all. Just painting, listening to music, having maybe a show or a game or something on in the background, and just working through it knowing that I have to. I've started larger projects in the past that were really intricate and given up on them. But this time, I was committed to seeing it through because I wanted to make something for the show. Now, thankfully, that anxiety and maybe a little bit of boredom didn't last too long. I found that as I just pushed forward, I started to have fun again, just playing with the colors and seeing some of these little abstract portraits of my friends and people I know come to life. I often make myself smile and even laugh when I'm creating these things, and I think that's a big part of what makes all of this worth it for me. I love the surprise of creating something new, and I just get joy out of making this stuff. Now, on the technical side, as I'm working through this area, I'm not unhappy with the colors so far, but I want to work in more variety, and at the same time, I'm already thinking about, maybe toning this whole middle section with like a warm tone. And I'm thinking, to myself, do I have the guts to do that? So now I'm using a micron pen, and I just probably got bored and decided to try something different. It did work well and made dark lines, and yeah, sometimes I just use whatever's available. I also got inspired by one of my little faces that looked like a devil and decided to make a little devil artist trading card. These are things I make sometimes and give away, and sometimes I actually sell them. Because I think when people find them, they don't really know that they're original art. So I don't know if they end up in the trash or what. I had one little area of the inner circle that I needed to finish outlining before I could move on to the outer ring. But it was kind of fun when I got to this point because the whole outer ring actually moved a lot faster. It went a lot faster because I'm drawing these images here in faces much more loose and larger. And I'm also painting with a limited palette again. So there's just less choices to make, I guess, and larger areas to paint. I wanted this whole outer ring to be more abstract. I wanted them to feel, these faces and objects to feel unknown and mysterious. This overall larger shapes also helps with the effect of expansion, and that's kind of intentional. I wanted this piece to feel like it was an expansion of time, sort of a, the way the universe is always expanding exponentially. And, it's like supposed to represent the timeline of my life. So from early childhood in the center, sort of that innocence and beginning, moving into this more unknown, mysterious future. You probably also noticed that I have the canvas up on a wall easel now, And that also made it a lot easier to paint faster, and also just allows me to step back and see the work better, so I can understand, how it's coming along. I've kind of roughly painted in the eyes and the scarabs at this point, and I'm skipping or holding off on painting those details for now. I want to make sure I get the whole background feeling complete, and certainly further along before I switch my painting style and start painting more realistic on top of this background. I want to go back and mention about the little devil drawing. That's kind of something I do from time to time, sort of from a bigger picture perspective. So when I'm focused on trying to make a piece like this and make it successful, it's not always successful. That's for sure. I mean, some of these things just don't turn out. But even if they do or don't, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm always also trying to take note of what's working and what's not working, and I'm always thinking of, individual parts and pieces of a work like this that I might be able to use and repurpose or make some other painting from. I'm also looking at the overall subject matter and concept, and just thinking about ways in which I might evolve it next time. I feel like it would be nice to be free enough to pivot and just very intuitively change directions. And I think sometimes I do that, but in a piece like this that's really involved and really somewhat planned out and very specific, it really would be hard to change directions in a major way, at least for me. I kind of need to see this one through, but I'm always, noting again, like what's working and how I might push this idea forward and evolve it in the future. I had some ideas about painting a ripped hole in the painting and having scarabs crawling out of it, and I just didn't feel like that really supported the overall concept, at least for this one. I did, however, decide to tone the outer and middle colors. I'm not even sure if that was the right call, at least at the time, but I'm not the type of artist, at least I don't want to be the type of artist who's afraid to make mistakes. I do think it's a balance, right? I think you have to figure out when to totally change directions or when to stay the course. But when I decide to do something like this, I don't look back. I felt the colors needed to be unified. There's already a lot going on with this piece, and so I added the transparent glaze of quinacridone, azo gold, nickel, and I think I even added some other glazes like purple and magenta too. Thanks for sticking with me this far. I really appreciate it. This whole next part is going to be a completely different style of painting, and I'm really excited. I'm going to start painting the scarabs and the eyes in a realistic style, and they really come together nicely, and I'm going to do my best to explain kind of how I'm approaching it, very different than the first part of this painting. I also, at the end, I'm going to share the reception the painting has gotten, the galleries and shows that it's gotten into, and an award that it's already won. So you probably saw I have some cutouts here of previous bugs that I've painted, and I'm using those as reference, and also just to sort of get the overall shape of the bug the way I want it. During this process, there's a lot of different techniques that I'm using. I'm going to be switching back and forth between a few things, and I'm going to show all three scarabs that I paint. So hopefully you can see better than me telling you. Maybe you can visually just see what I'm doing. I do that sometimes where I go and watch other artists paint these things, and sometimes it's easier just to see what they're doing versus hearing it. But I'll do my best to do both. So like I said, it's really a process of switching back and forth between a variety of techniques, just trying to build up depth and try to create dimension. So starting with a darker color and then a medium color and then a lighter color, and then slowly glazing, going back and adding more darker colors, more medium colors, more glazing, more highlights, and honestly just pushing it and trying different things until it feels good, until I feel happy with it. If that makes sense. I hope you can sort of understand that. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do this, especially with acrylic. It's really more of just grinding through it and playing with it and trying these different techniques until you get what you want. As you've probably seen in these clips, I paint over things that I've already painted. There might have been a point where it was good to go and I just wasn't happy with it, so I painted over it again. And I just continued to do that until I'm like super happy with the piece. And, as I do more and more of these, it becomes more natural to me and it becomes easier. The bottom line is you just got to keep going and keep working it until you're happy with it. Now, for the golden scarabs, the colors I was using for the most part were raw umber, yellow ochre, titanium white, some just transparent yellow, some green gold, some alizarin crimson, and obviously with the eyes, it's going to be a lot of different varieties of colors, but it's essentially the same techniques. It's starting with darker colors, working in medium, and then lighter. And finishing with highlights. And I'm also going back with like raw umber and just different darker colors and creating some fuzzy shadows to really make the scarabs pop. And during this time, I was enjoying this process, but I was already sort of feeling like I didn't want to add the legs because I liked the way the scarabs looked as they were kind of just sitting on the surface. They kind of reminded me of horseshoe crabs where their legs were maybe hidden underneath. Again, I needed to just push through that fear and not worry about ruining the painting. So I ended up adding the legs later, and I'm glad it did. It turned out really well. You might have seen a few small artist cards again while I'm doing this, and what I'm doing there is actually testing some of the techniques out on smaller cards to try to just get confidence and play with different techniques to see what's working better. And also I end up using those cards like this one here. You can see there's like a little June bug. It kind of frees me up, right? I feel like I'm more relaxed. I can just play around. It's not like an end all be all. And I end up, giving those cards away, like I mentioned with the devil card earlier, or I'll sell them, whatever. It's not wasted time, I guess. It's not throwaway work. I also wanted to touch on the meaning behind these, and there's a lot, to consider. I guess first of all, I just simply like the idea of putting objects on top of these abstract backgrounds. I like the way it pops. I like the juxtaposition of the styles, right? The more loose or strange, abstract, geometric, whatever you want to call it, shapes next to these more realistic objects or insects. I also just like insects and bugs, and I think they're fun to paint, and I want to get better at them. I like gold objects. I like shiny metal objects. There's something about the concept of treasure that really, I find fascinating and interesting. So all those things are kind of involved or at least considered, but then there's also like a deeper meaning, which is I know that scarabs are known as a symbol of rebirth. Or at least I've read that somewhere, and I really love that concept. And I loved the concept of these scarabs kind of crawling over this tapestry, which is meant to be this document of my life, and sort of see them as representing observing moments in time or observing my life experiences. And what's cool about that is it gives me a sense of like self-awareness and insight. Like these are not so much individual parts of me, but more like different times in which I've examined my own life and responded to what I'm seeing or what I've seen or experienced. And so it's kind of this hopeful thing, like this rebirth idea of like, gaining insight from your observations of yourself, having self-awareness, and then applying those learnings to the future. And, I like just painting cool stuff. So at the end of the day, whether I share that meaning with anyone or anyone gets it, it's fine. It's fine for me if it's open-ended and there's no real communication of any of that stuff, right? It's just, I think it's okay to just make things that you like and have them be interpreted however the viewer will choose to interpret them. It's just a very, very interesting process to paint this stuff and then try to explain it from all these different levels. And I really hope that this is meaningful and helpful and useful for someone out there. I always ask for people to comment, and I really do appreciate it when people do, because it tells me what is working, what is resonating, and what else you'd like to hear from me. And I also have this thing where, I want people to understand I don't have all the answers, right? I feel like I'm just learning, right? There's a lot of things even about this painting that I'm looking at, and I know I could do better and would probably do better next time. But it's all a process of gaining new understanding and just leveling up every time I get a chance. And I'm hopeful that there's a lot of other folks that are on the same journey. And I hope it encourages people to give this stuff a try and to see what's working for me, and also like connect with me and tell me what what you want to know more about, or what is working or isn't working or whatever. And I think we're just kind of all in this together as far as artists are concerned. I'll talk a little bit about color choices here. So I painted these ladybugs, kind of a nod to Greg Crayola Simpkins. Paints a lot of ladybugs in his work, and I think those are, it's just I'm really enamored with his work. I think he's definitely one of my influences certainly one of my influences in the last few years. Strong influences, and I chose to do different colors, kind of a cyan, magenta. What's the other color? Yellow, right? So like the concept of like the three basic primary colors that you can use to make up all the other colors. Having a career in design and having worked in design, having worked in RGB and CMYK and all these different color palettes or whatnot, and just having color be such a big part of who I am as an artist, but also who we all are as artists. And then obviously with this show being based on the code of color, it just made sense to me to sort of have these top level ladybugs that are like little jewels and that are a variety of colors. I think I ended up using a gold, a pink, a blue, and a green one. And obviously I'm here painting the legs in again, and I'm just happy I did. Right, I'm really proud of myself for not being scared, right, and falling short and leaving the bugs without legs. I think it would have worked and it would have been fine, but in the end, I think it was the right choice to go for it. And so, I'm just trying to make them have some dimension. I end up outlining them in black to help them pop off of the background a little bit. Again, it's not meant to be super hyper realistic. It's just meant to be realistic as compared to the background. And then the shadows, I think, help a lot. So just adding in shadows to kind of give them even more depth. And that's a technique that I think I've gotten better and better at over time. So the thing I'm thinking about right now is that this is just a lot of fun. At this point, I'm just enjoying the whole process. There's definitely part of the painting process where stress comes to play, where you worry about the outcome, the result. You can get caught up in all that, and especially a complicated painting where you don't really know how it's going to turn out. But at this point where I'm adding these golden scarabs and the eyes and these ladybugs, I'm just really enjoying it. And I'm also seeing kind of the fruits of my labor, if you will. And I think there's also this point where I start to get really excited about wanting other people to see it too. And that's really what was happening at this point, is I was just enjoying it and having a lot of fun with it. And that's a really exciting, cool thing that I hope more people get to experience or do experience when they're making art. This ladybug here, I think I end up painting a kind of an abstract clover, like a lucky 4-leaf clover or 3-leaf clover or something in it. And that's something I like to hide stuff. Like I like to hide little symbols, little secrets, little things that most people probably wouldn't notice. It's hard these days to get anyone to even notice the artwork in general, much less look at it long enough to see something that's like a special little hidden thing. At some point in the top right corner of the painting, there are two bunnies, and that's a nod to the pets that we used to own. We used to have two bunnies, and that kind of little stuff. Like I hide those kind of things or include those little things. Even if this wasn't a thing, a painting that was kind of documenting my life or my experiences, I would still hide those kind of little things, little nods to my experiences in the work. And for the eyes, I just did a variety of colors because obviously I couldn't get away. Well, I guess I could have. I could have just used red and green and pink and yellow and just repeated the eyes, but I think that would have felt a little odd, or at least layout wise, it might have been a little strange. So I ended up, adding some hues like purple and gold and more orange. I think I did a gray one, and then a variety of blues. And with this whole thing, I could have made the eyes probably more realistic, but as far as the eyelashes or eyelid, but I felt like it was sort of like this transition between the realistic objects and the abstract objects, and I sort of used the eyeballs themselves as being realistic, and then the surrounding, like the whites of the eyes and the eyelids to be sort of that transition into that surreal, abstract, flat world. And I think it turned out pretty good. At least I was happy with it. All right, so as we're coming to the end of the video here, I want to talk a little bit about what has happened since, and kind of this concept of all the work that I put into these things, and I think that we all do, right? And then this concern over, is it worth it? Should I be spending all this time working on these things? And there's times where I make a painting and it might sit around for 2 years. It might be in a gallery. It might be in multiple shows. It may get no response really at all, and then all of a sudden it sells, right? And someone really loves it, and they want to talk about it with me, or just tell me kind of what it means to them. And you kind of have to trust it, right? You kind of have to just have to make these things for yourself, and put it out there, and then just whether or not you're doing it for accolades or not, just kind of hope, or not hope, but just kind of wait for it to come back to you, I guess is the best way to say it. Like, and not worry about it if it doesn't, right? But at any rate, this one did get some really good responses. People liked it, from just sharing it online and whatnot. But I entered it into the show, obviously, for the show that I had created this for in the first place. The show that I was going to enter it into actually got postponed, and I thought it was going to be canceled. So I ended up not having, anywhere for this to go, and potentially having made it for nothing, right? In a way. But then the show was back on, and I submitted it, and it did get accepted. And not only did it get accepted, but it actually won first place, sort of like the Best in Show award. And there was like a little cash prize that came with that. And it was awesome. It was like I got to go to the opening, and people were attracted to the painting. They wanted to talk about it. They saw things that I didn't even see or plan. And I guess it made sense. It connected with people, and it made sense. And then from there, I ended up entering it into the 2025 Art Fields show and competition and festival, and it got into that as well. So I'm super excited about that. As the recording of this takes place, I'm getting ready to send it off to that show, and I'm looking forward to going up there in a couple of months and seeing all the art. Yeah, it's just super exciting, and I'm hopefully reaching folks out there that care about this kind of thing and are interested in it and are on their own journey. And please connect with me, hit me in the comments, let me know what you guys want to see next, and I'll do my best to make more of these if this is something that you guys are interested in. And thank you so much.